Do the names of Amelia Earhart, Charles Lindbergh, the Wright brothers, and Jimmy Doolittle mean something to you? We have with us today a lady who has a connection with them and a fascination in participating in air races. Want to learn more about this unique hobby? Stay tuned.
Welcome to The Better Part, a program by and for seniors and devoted to exploring the many facets of those better years of our lives. The name of our program was inspired by a quotation from Robert Browning. "Grow old along with me, the best is yet to be, the last of life for which the first was made." Now, sit back and enjoy a program made especially to provide seniors with useful information, plus some lighter moments to brighten your day.
Hello, I'm Marilyn Priel, your host for this edition of The Better Part. In the studio with me today is Nancy Rodgers, an aviator who loves to fly and is very active in the sport of air racing. She has won numerous awards and has recently been inducted into the prestigious International Forest of Friendship. Welcome, Nancy.
Thank you, Marilyn.
I happen to know that when you were a child, you loved to read about Amelia Earhart. Is that what created the desire in flying for you?
Probably so. I did a lot of reading, and what really started my interest was when a sister-in-law flew in to where I was living, and with a friend of hers who was a private pilot. They lived about 100 miles away and flew in to have lunch with me, and I thought that was pretty neat.
When did you actually begin racing?
I joined the 99s, which is an international women pilot group, as soon as I was licensed. That was 1973. And in 1975, one of the 99s asked if I would be her co-pilot in an air race. I knew nothing about air racing, and it sounded like the thing to do, and I loved it. So that's when I started.
What kind of plane did you fly? Have you flown?
Well, we owned a Cessna 172, which is a high-wing airplane, and we also owned, later on, a Piper Warrior, which is a low-wing airplane. So I've flown both. I single engine. I did train in a twin engine for a while, and single engine, 4-seat airplane.
That's your preference?
Yes, yes.
Engine. Mm-hmm. How many races have you participated in?
I've been in 42 air races. Once I started, I couldn't stop. Sometimes I would do 3 races a year. Most of the races were strictly female races, but I flew in the Fresno 400, which was men and women, and I flew many of the Salinas his-hers. You had to have one male and one female in the cockpit, co-pilot that knew how to fly.
What's the longest distance you've flown?
The Powder Puff Derby in 1976 was, I think, about 2,700 miles. We went from Sacramento to Wilmington, Delaware. And so that was the longest flight.
Nearly 3,000 miles?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then you had to fly back?
That's right.
But the race was just one way?
Yes, yes.
Mm-hmm. I've never seen an air race. How are they orchestrated?
Well, there are long races, and I guess I'll talk more about the Powder Puff Derby because that was the real race, and you do a lot of preparation before. But at the start, the airplanes are lined up, and they take off about every 10 to 15, 20 seconds apart. The faster airplanes, they give a little more time before they take off after a slower airplane.
They're all on one...
They're on a taxiway.
One runway?
Yes, and then they taxi out, and there's someone with a flag, and they give you the countdown from the tower.
So if you had like 200 planes, you'd have a lineup of 200 airplanes?
The airport is closed while the race is launched, And the timing actually starts as you pass the tower. The flag goes down, that means you can go. And in starting an air race, love the start because you get on your brakes and just bring that engine full bore and then let go, and then you're building speed. And
it's like they do on the ships, isn't it, when the planes take off, they kind of rev their engines and shoot.
Yeah, off an aircraft carrier.
Oh, gosh.
So you gain a little speed before you even let go with the brakes.
Oh, how exciting. Well, how did they determine who will be first in line and at the end of the line?
We draw for numbers. You send in your entry, and they actually have a drawing. When they drew for the powder puff that I was in, Charles Schultz of Snoopy fame drew the numbers. His wife is 99, and I've raced against Gene Schultz, and so it's a big deal. You have it was a breakfast meeting when all the racers were there, and they pull out the numbers, and I was number.
Go ahead.
I was number 155. You're hoping to be in the first 10 because you just want to be ahead before you start.
Do you fly alone on these flights?
So you can fly alone, but it's hard work flying an air race, and you have to know exactly where you're going and where you are, and it's a lot easier with a co-pilot. It's a lot more fun with a co-pilot.
And safer, I suppose.
It's a long, lonely trip when you're alone. But most of the gals fly with co-pilots.
You have to all use the same kind of airplanes?
No, we are handicapped so that say a single engine Cessna 172 could fly against a twin engine Beech, and I would have a handicap of like 122 miles per hour. The Beech might have 200 and something, and you are racing against your own airplane. Beat that handicap by as much as you can.
So it's not who gets to the finish line first.
No.
It's you. So it doesn't really matter then if you're 200th in line on the runway, then it's what your own personal time is.
That's right. That's right.
So there's a lot of variables in that then, aren't there?
There are, and if you have a slower airplane, you do not have the options. A faster airplane can sit on the ground and wait for better winds. A slower airplane just has to keep plugging along because you have a time limit. I think it's about 4 days on that you have to be at the terminus, or you're disqualified. And you fly from official sunrise, you can take off, to official sunset. You don't fly at night. You don't fly instruments. If weather is bad, you have to wait for better weather.
So if it's like a 3-day flight or something, like say in the Powder Puff Derby when you crossed the U.S., it took several days and you stopped each night then?
Yes.
And then what, does everyone go to the same hotel, or? Well,
you have designated airports that you can stop at, and there are about 10 what we call flybys. That is a designated airport, and they will time us when we get there. But if we have the range and the time, we can go on to the next place.
Oh. So you don't all have to stop.
So we're all kind of spread across the country. And sometimes you will get stuck in weather where some have already gone on. Most people who don't know about air racing, when they see a plane come in and it's the first one, they're sure they're winning the race, but you don't know until at the terminus, and it's very close in timing. It can be hundredths of a second different in the timing of airplanes.
So somebody has to be very careful in the judging. I guess it must take a while to get everything calculated and
it does.
So forth.
And of course now it's a lot quicker because they can use computers and calculators, and racing is a lot different these days. In the good old days, we didn't have LORAN and GPS, and you would count on people getting lost, and then you knew you could beat them. And we used handheld calculators to figure our scores, but it takes a while to, and you would use a stopwatch and keep your own time on each leg, and then if they didn't have it right, say there were 3 planes flying by a timing line, they might miss one. So you could keep your own records. That's right. That's right.
So it took a lot more knowledge and experience back in the earlier days.
That's right. In the early powder puff, the ladies used to wear skirts. Now, of course, we always fly in slacks and comfortable clothes, but they would wear skirts and high heels, and they had to run to a timing clock. And that's when you needed the co-pilot. When the propeller stopped, the co-pilot would jump out and run to this clock and log in, and that was the official timing.
That sounds exciting.
Well, I think some of the pilots pick the fastest runners, too. Wow. Maybe not the best navigator.
Would you be my co-pilot? I do know that you told me, you sent me some literature and things to read up on, and I did read that it was actually, the race was called something else, but Will Rogers is the one who dubbed it the Powder Puff Derby.
That's right.
Now, isn't that chauvinistic? And I had to laugh when I saw that, because I happen to know that during World War II, most of the B-29s that came out of the factory and were flown over to the China, India-Burma theater were flown by women.
That's right.
Pilots. So. Well, now, how do the airports handle all that? So many people taking off and landing and everything.
It's hard for the airports.
Does it require extra staff on their part?
They have extra staff and extra security, because there are going to be a lot of airplanes tied down there too. And some airports will close the other runways while we're landing. Some airports let the other runway stay open. And there was a race that had a flyby at Prescott, and there was someone new in the tower, and they finally just kind of panicked. And they said, "All you ladies go away for a while," because they could not handle, 6 planes coming through. Because we're going pretty fast when we do our flybys.
I imagine when these women's races first began, there were a lot of jokes from men about all those women being up in the air at the same time. So you showed them, didn't you?
We did. We did.
Okay. Are there celebrations and parties along with these races?
There are. At the start, we're there a couple days early for briefings and all sorts of meetings and safety advice, and we have a start banquet. And then at the terminus, there is the big awards banquet. And it always used to be a formal occasion. Pilots and co-pilots dress in matching outfits. When we're racing, we would have, well, I have a vest on now. My co-pilot would have similar outfit. At the banquets, they used to be formal. We would actually wear matching formals, which is funny, because you wouldn't be caught dead in a room with a woman with the same formal on. And the gal I fly with now, when she first heard about that you wore matching outfits, she said, "No way." And but now she does, and it's fun, because you know what the teams are when you see them dressed alike.
Well, that's right. You match up with you. They know who your partner is, and then you're really party girls, then, aren't you?
Especially when we get to the terminus.
I can imagine so.
And as we fly, when we stay overnight across the country, the people are so excited that an air race is stopping there that they want to entertain you. And of course, we're studying our charts and getting ready for the next couple legs, and we don't want to party. But they've waited a long time for this race to come through, and they're wonderful. They have food for us, and they come out with lemonade and flowers, and it's a happy occasion, and a financial help to the airports across the country too.
Is it quite expensive to enter a race?
The entry fee, I don't even know what the Air Race Classic is this year. It probably is $350, or it may have gone up to $400 now for the entry fee.
And then the renting the plane, or if you own one, you still have the fuel.
It's expensive. I flew the Air Race Classic in 1989, and I figured that cost me a little over $5,000. And so now it's even more expensive because the fuel has gone up.
Is that including the hotels and stuff?
Yes,
everything?
yeah, that's the...
And did you include your evening gowns?
Oh, of course.
Okay, well, I do know that you belong to some very prestigious flying clubs. Would you tell us about some of those?
Well, I belong to the International Women Pilots Organization, which is known as the 99s. And where do I have a pin?
You have one up.
Oh, this pin has the intertwining nines, and that's our logo. Amelia Earhart was our first president. I don't know if you'd be interested in knowing
we want to hear all about
how we started.
Yes.
But
when did it begin then?
It began in 1929 when there was the first air race going to the Cleveland air races in Ohio from Santa Monica. And 10 women decided they were going to race. And of course they had many problems getting lost, running out of fuel, crashing, and so forth. But when they all got there, they said, you know, we should start an organization. And there were 117 licensed American pilots at that time, women pilots that they knew of. And so they got together, 99 of them showed up at the meeting, and they said, well, what shall we call ourselves? And they decided they would call themselves the 99s. And that's when Amelia was the first.
How many people, do you know how many women are in it now?
Now we have, it's international, all over the world. We have 35 different countries that have 99 chapters, and we are over 6,500 strong in the...
Wow, that's wonderful. What are some of their special activities?
Well, we do a lot of education, giving scholarships to people that want to fly. We have an organization called the Angel Derby, where people who need medical help, and they might live in Redding, California, and have to come to Stanford for treatment, and we fly them down if they aren't able to drive. And we fly organs around, eyes occasionally. We do other medical supplies. We used to do the Direct Relief Foundation, flying supplies to Santa Monica where their headquarters was, and then they would distribute them to the Central America and Mexico. We have dates that run out on prescriptions, but they would take something that was a year old that was very important for them to get. We earmark runways. You'll many times see a name of an airport, and in the old days that used to be important because you'd look down, oh, I'm at Woodside, Illinois, so you knew where you were.
Oh, you mean like you see in the old movies with the actual writing on the ground? Or
and
the
we still do that. San Jose has 50-foot letters that we had painted.
My goodness.
And we're going to be doing San Carlos and Half Moon Bay soon. Now we're supposed to know where we are when we're flying, but it's helpful.
What are some of the other flying organizations you belong to?
I belong to the AOPA, which is Aircraft Owner and Pilot Association. I've been a member of that since I joined the 99s. I belong to the Silver Wings, which is anyone who has had their pilot's license for over 25 years. It's funny, thinking back on the Powder Puff and what I have done, I realize I'm old. But, you know, the Powder Puff hasn't been run since 1976, and it's all history, and it's fun to think about.
Oh, yes. Well, you had the great honor to be inducted into the International Forest of Friendship. And would you tell us what that is and how it originated, when and where, and so forth?
That honor was a very big surprise to me. It was announced at our Christmas banquet 2 years ago. The Forest of Friendship was started in 1976 as a gift to the United States on their 200th birthday. And the city of Atchison, Kansas, and the 99s decided to put aside, and I'm not sure how many acres, it is a big park area, to honor aviators or people involved in aviation over the past and into the present, tying the past to our space. And so this park has grown. There is a tree planted for every state. Each state is represented, and there's a tree from each of the 35 countries where we have 99 members. You don't have to be a pilot to be inducted. You just have to, people who worked at Lockheed or NASA.
Contributors.
Anyone who has contributed in some way. I don't know why I was inducted. It was a big honor. But
I think you're being modest, because I know that there are only about 1,000 people so honored, and you're one of them, and you're in there with Amelia Earhart and the Wright brothers and some astronauts, President Eisenhower, Colin Powell, I know this, a lot of Chuck Yaeger, all kinds of famous people, and you're in there too. So I think you're being probably modest if you don't.
Well, it's a big honor, and the names are very impressive. And it's like a walkway through a forest, and the names are embedded in granite in the walkway.
So like your name would be on one of the...
Yes, yeah. And I'm in the California section where the California redwood is, and then there's the California flag. So it's very impressive to see when all the flags are flying.
Are there any special trees there other than the state trees?
One very special tree is the moon tree. The seed was flown in space, and there is an astronaut circle where in the inner circle the Challenger, the people that died on the Challenger, have their granite stones. And then on the outside circle they have other astronauts who have been honored. And of course, with the recent tragedy, those people will be honored in that section. There's a tree from Eisenhower's grandfather's farm. There's a tree from Amelia Earhart's grandfather's farm.
And then, it's not the city where it's built. Isn't that where Amelia Earhart was born? Or,
yes.
Or did you mention that?
That's where she was born, and her birthplace home is still there. And the 99s now own it, and we have restored it. And it's right on the banks of the river, and it's a fun thing to see for a pilot.
It seems like a wonderful place to visit. It's in the middle of America.
That's right.
It? So if you're traveling across, you should stop and, by all means, take a stroll through there. I know that you met Chuck Yaeger.
I did meet Chuck.
By accident, or how did that happen?
He came to one of we have section meetings in the spring and the fall, and he joined us at a section meeting in Wonder Valley, California.
Oh, I see.
And he had flown in with a buddy of his that the gal I flew with a lot knew, and they were bringing strawberries for our section meeting. And so we chatted with Chuck, and Corky was his buddy, and they were going to leave, and they said, "Why don't you take off? We'll fly wing to wing." And so we did, and I have a picture of Chuck's flying right next to me. So
I hope you have it framed. I think you should. Do you have any personal opinions on what happened to Amelia Earhart?
Well, I've gone to a lot of lectures and seminars on it, and of course there are so many talks about this. I really believe that she had the wrong map. New maps came out afterwards, and they showed Howland Island on the map she was using. They showed the island about 5 miles closer than it was. And when you hear the stories of she was talking on the radio and they had her going north-south trying to cross the island, I really think she was probably 5 miles away and finally ran out of fuel.
Oh.
I think they will find the airplane sometime. There's a group, the Nauticos, which with funding, I think they will find it.
Have you ever flown anything besides an airplane?
I flew a blimp.
Come on.
Where'd
you find a blimp?
I was given the controls. I took my daughter Kathy, who has flown 15 air races with me, and after an air race I said I was a special treat, and I rented time a flight in a blimp, which is fine. And she went up to the pilot and she said, "My mother flies." And so they had me come up and they let me fly around the Golden Gate, which was like flying an elephant.
That must have been really fun.
It was fun. So I've been up in a glider, and I haven't done an ultralight. I've done one tandem parachute jump, which is about as much fun as you can have if you like jumping out of airplanes.
Well, I like to dance. I'm better with my feet on the ground. But I'm very happy that you were here today and telling us all about your interesting flying and about air racing. And thank you very much, Nancy.
Well, thank you for having me. It was fun to think back on what we might talk about.
Mm-hmm. We hope you enjoyed our program and will join us again. If you have ideas about programs you would like to see, or if you would like to be on our crew, you can reach us at the Cupertino Senior Center. And goodbye for now.